Hey, real quick while I've got you, I want to remind you that my final Honest Art Workshop of 2025 is going to be here in Austin, Texas, October 22nd through 26th. And I know the idea of taking a workshop can feel really vulnerable and sometimes a little scary, but it truly is the fastest way to elevate your art. So whether you're a beginner or you've been painting for a while, I can tell you that this workshop will help you elevate your art to that fine art status, and it'll help you find and embrace your voice, your signature in your work. So if this sounds good, don't sleep on it because the workshop is already half full and it will sell out. So go to the link in the show notes if you would like to join me in Austin in October. Hello and welcome back to the Honest Art Podcast. I am your host, Jodie King, and super excited to talk to you today. So a lot of you may know this, some of you may not, but I did not go to art school. I have been a professional artist for 22 years, but I definitely never wanted to do that when I was younger. So back when I was 35, so that's a lot of time, right? When I was 35, I just got a wild hair and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to paint? I had no prior training. I never, as a kid, I wasn't the kid that liked to draw. I did not have this visual art acumen at all. So needless to say, when I started painting at 35, and at the time there was no YouTube, there was no internet. That's a long time ago. Anyway, so I didn't really have anything to reference. So it took me a really long time to learn techniques that I use now that help me sell my paintings for thousands of dollars. And so that's what we're going to talk about on this week's episode, are the 8 techniques I wish I had known sooner because I didn't go to art school. So if you're ready, let's get messy. Okay, so if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to determine what we're talking about. So I would suggest heading over to the YouTube channel and you could see everything that we're talking about on this episode. Okay, ready? Let's get into it. Okay, the first thing that I wish I had known in terms of technique is not to take the paint straight out of the jar. And the reason is that 90% of the time, the paint that comes straight out of the jar is a medium value. So what do I mean by that? I mean that when you have got a container of paint, or maybe it's a tube of paint, 90% of the time, that paint is going to be, like I said, a medium value. So what does that mean? That means the value is the darkness and lightness of color. And if you put just a medium value straight onto the canvas, it's going to make it that much harder to push your values, to get some lighter values and darker values. So the technique that I learned is to start with the color that you like, but then I always created a lighter version of it. So it's a light value or do a dark value. But the medium value is so hard to start a painting that way because as we start painting, what are the other colors going to be when we start choosing them? Those other colors are also going to be medium values. But our eye cannot distinguish between color. It distinguishes between values. So for instance, if you're looking at this painting, we've got some lighter values here and some darker values, and we've got some medium values. So imagine if the whole background was all medium values, it was going to be harder to create those other values. So that's the number one tip, is that I wish I'd known not to start my paintings with a medium value. Okay, the next thing that I learned is when I was finally was like, I want to add more than just paint on this painting. I want to start doing some mark making. So I got some pastels and I got charcoal and I got, what do you call that? What is the thing that's called? graphite. All these different things to do some mark making. So as I have my tools here and I started doing some mark making like this, I was having so much fun. I wish I had known about this. But the thing is that I didn't realize until it was too late is that these will smudge unless we seal it. See, it comes off on my finger. So in order to keep this look, then we are going to have to seal it. So that's what I learned. So one thing that you can do is you can do just a fixative. The other thing that you can do is you can use a varnish or a medium and go over it. So let me show you how that works. So I love what happens when you do this. So here's a medium. You could medium, varnish, whatever. And then you can go over it and look at the difference that it makes. It creates this nice smudgy line like this. Or you can hold the brush towards the end and then make it a little less controlled. So how fun is that? I do this on basically every one of my paintings now. Okay, so the next technique that I learned was how to use saturated colors with less saturated colors or more of like neutral colors. Because when I first started, I was just like, oh my gosh, I love color so much. I just want to put color, 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 color. And then with so many really saturated colors, it can be a little difficult to see all of them. So when I learned that you can use saturated colors, very saturated colors like this, along with less saturated colors, like some of these grays and some of these neutrals, what I learned is that with the less saturated colors or more of those neutrals, when you place them on a painting next to fully saturated colors, it makes those saturated colors that we love so much, it makes them more impactful because we have placed them next to a less saturated color. So if you have shied away because you love color and you've shied away from making these less saturated colors, let this be your permission slip to go ahead and do that, because it's going to make those saturated colors that you love so much, it's going to make them pop. Okay, next one, I'm going to go back to this painting here. The next one, I think this is something that a lot of us do, and that is that we will approach the canvas and we will just want to be very, very expressive. And I am here for that, right? It is so fun to be really expressive. It's honest art, right? And you're just here to have a good time, or you're really stressed, whatever it might be. And so you're really, really expressive on the canvas. But what happens is that if we are really, really expressive on the canvas, but we don't leave any larger places either around the edges or in the canvas itself, if we are just have a lot of mark making, a lot of erratic marks, and we don't leave a place for the eye to rest or a place to go to, then it makes the viewer want to look away. Because without that place for the eye to rest, and also without maybe necessarily a focal point, then we don't know where to look. And it can be really, really chaotic. So I always recommend having a place for the eye to rest, either on the edges or in the middle, and it can make a big difference. And you can see also in this painting, even this right here is a bit of a place for the eye to rest, and it can bring the viewer into the painting even more. Hey guys, real quick, I want to tell you that one thing I know for sure, that in order for artists to thrive, they need community, they need support, and they need business and creative skills. And that's why I created my membership group called the Honest Art Society. Within the Honest Art Society, I offer coaching calls every month. You get monthly art critiques as well. You get trainings on everything from creative techniques to business skills, and you get exclusive discounts on workshops and courses. But maybe most importantly is you get a community of amazing, kind artists, all in an asshole-free zone. So if you'd love to join us in the Honest Art Society, you can go to the link in the show notes. The cost is only $47 a month, and you can cancel at any time. I'd love to see you there. All right, the next technique that I wish I knew that can create this really, really cool effect in our work is something called scrambling. So what's scrambling? Scrambling is when you get some paint on your brush, but it's kind of like a dry brush. So you can get some on there, and if you painted it like this, it would just be solid. Can you guys see that, how it's just solid? But when we scrumble, we take it and we kind of make it a little bit more of a dry brush, and then we can go like this. So it creates a little bit more of a transparent or a translucent, and it just has these really interesting brush marks that we wouldn't have if we were just going to do with like a solid, fully saturated, like when I'm saying saturated, I'm saying saturated on the brush. So scrambling is really cool. And what I find is really fun with scrambling is, let's say that you are in the part of the painting where you're just like, you're so far into the fuglies, you don't even know where to start, what to do. You just don't know, right? But you know that you don't want to quit painting, right? So I find that if you can look at the painting and look at what values are mostly there. Now, if you look at this painting here, this is mostly medium values. If you can pick a paint color, since it's medium, so if you can pick a paint color that is, or you can create it that is not medium. So let's say that we had another color and we added some white to it, so it's a much lighter value. And then you go into that, and then you can just scrumble in different places all over the painting. It can keep us working the painting without necessarily overworking the painting. So scrambling, it can just be a whole lot of fun, and it just keeps us in that creative process. Okay, next, this might be my favorite, if I'm being honest. The technique that I wish I had known is subtraction. Okay, not math. I still can't do math. Okay, no, when I say subtraction, it's like taking away from what is already on the painting. And there are 3 ways of subtracting that I love to do. The first one is subtracting paint that is wet. Like sometimes like you put some paint on the canvas and you're like, oh yeah, I really think I want to do that. And so you put some paint on there and you're like, yeah, no, that didn't look so great. So we are going to enlist the power of subtraction with my favorite, which is a water bottle and my trusty blue paper towels. So you can simply spray the painting. You get some great drips on there, and then subtract by using the paper towels. So you just lay the paper towels on the painting, rub it down like this, and then subtract, and you've got some interesting stuff happening there. So that's one way to do subtraction. The other thing that I like to use for subtraction is just baby wipes, like alcohol wipes. You can take the alcohol wipes as long as the paint is not too dry, right? So this would be something that you would do in the painting session. So the painting is getting dry, but it's not fully dry. You can use those alcohol wipes to rub back, and you can see some layers underneath it. Another thing I like to do is to have a spray bottle with, rubbing alcohol in there, and you could spray it on the painting, and you could rub it back with just some of those blue paper towels. It creates a really, really interesting look. But then, if you want to use the granddaddy of subtraction, you can do this. A power sander. This I love me a power tool. This sucker is so great because you can take the painting and you can just start going to town and sanding back layers and just seeing what kind of delights you find within the painting. Now, this is really it's really helpful if you have a canvas that you're just absolutely hating. But like for this, I would absolutely take this sander and go back into different places just for the hell of it, just because it's fun. Now, in case you're wondering, I use 220 grit and as well as 60 grit, as well as 120 grit. I don't think the grit is that important, honestly, but I do think that it's much easier to do this if you have an electric sander, some sort of power sander, versus just the sandpaper. Now, I have used just sandpaper before, and it works fine. This is just, I don't know. This just makes me feel like a badass, honestly. And I want that for you. I also want you to feel like a badass. All right, and then finally, the technique that I really wished I had known when I was first starting out. And also, this is the technique that I teach in my workshops. And it's the thing that people say over and over and over again, that it's their number one thing that they loved about my workshops. And that is, I teach a very special color mixing technique. And you'll have to come to my workshops or do the color course for Rebels to learn it. But when you can have a color mixing technique to where you can choose any color you like, and yet the colors are still cohesive, it makes what we do as artists so much more fun. And it also can help us stay in flow. Because oftentimes what I hear people say is, do you prefer using a limited palette or complementary colors? And I'm like, no, I want to use whatever color I want. I don't want to have to use a limited palette. I don't want to have to do anything. Nobody's the boss of me, right? And so when I learned this color mixing technique, it changed everything. I would love for you to learn it. If you would like to learn it in the color course for Rebels, we will put that link in the show notes. Also, if you would like to join me at my workshop in Austin at the end of October, we'll put that link in the show notes as well. But even if those don't work out, I hope some of these techniques seem like a good idea and that you'll try some of them, just nothing else, just because they're going to be a whole lot of fun. All right, I hope that was helpful. Please remember, if you are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. That helps us so much. We'd love providing all of this content for you, and we would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms, we'd appreciate a 5-star ranking and a review. All right, you guys, until next time, take really good care of yourselves and each other. Peace out.